Voyager's two most senior officers are on their way to survey a moon because it's been a whole 6 episodes since our last shuttle crash, so we're due another one. This time it's from an unexpected storm, and to let the viewer know how exciting this scene is, the effects department gives us a grey ship in front of a grey cloud. We land with all the subtlety of a Tom Paris pickup line, but that grey cloud may have a silver lining. Okay, Chakotay's stranded on a moon, but he may also be in line for a promotion. He does a flashy thing and it makes a sad noise, so she's probably a bit ill. We can't stay put because the shuttle's filling up with toxic gas, so let's go for a little walk. Looks like Janeway was more ill than we thought, as Chakotay is doing a bit of CPR interspersed with the sort of terrible "breathe, damn it" dialogue that was cliché even back then. Now, I try not to judge an episode before it really gets going, but this is one of the worst openings I've seen so far. An initial scene with Neelix and Janeway having an innuendo-filled conversation, Captain and First Officer alone on a low-priority mission, yet another shuttle crash. That just awful Chakotay dialogue. I know they can't all be winners, but this is the most phoned in I think it's ever felt, and I'm including Threshold in that. But again, I digress. Janeway wakes up after Chakotay remembers he has a first aid kit and injects her. The most important thing right now is sending a rescue signal, so Chakotay leaves that to the concussed and recently dead person while he grabs blankets and snacks. While he's over there, he gives the shuttle a scan. When asked why, he says there are burns on the back of the ship consistent with getting pooped on, suggesting the crash wasn't because of the storm but rather being shot down. Hello, this might be a bit more interesting. Based on the chance they're a target, Janeway stops the homing signal while Chakotay takes another look at those burns. Janeway pops over too, leaving all of those important supplies incidentally, and we discover that the weapons were Vidian, so our old friends the Plague Lads are involved. Which is curious, as we're supposed to be out of their space by now, but maybe they're on a day trip. Looks like the day trip must have been a full coach, as there are groups all around them, so we scarper into a cave to hide. That goes pear-shaped and they're surrounded, before Chakotay is shot and Janeway strangled to death. We're back on the shuttle, having the conversation we had before we crashed, so I guess this is the mandatory Groundhog Day episode that all sci-fi shows do when they need a script at short notice. Looks like Janeway and Chakotay are as bored of this concept as the rest of us, as they waste no time in recognizing that they're in some sort of time loop. Janeway pokes a screen to show us that long strings of meaningless numbers exist, but that doesn't help. You know what else doesn't help? A Plague Lad ship arriving and blowing them up, which feels like a curious way for organ harvesters to get a decent crop, so maybe there's something more going on. The third time round, and Chakotay is getting a bit tired of it, making this episode the first time I felt a real kinship with him. Those Plague Lads are back, and now they have 2 ships. Janeway suggests pooping some time science all over the place, which sounds a bit like trying to fix a flood by turning on your tap. We do it anyway as we scarper towards Voyager, only for those 2 Plague Lad ships to disappear. Janeway tells us the place they vanished has some time science going on, which is hardly surprising given that we already have 2 time science things going on, but she seems to think it's important, so make a note. They celebrate escaping, which probably means they're going to die and loop again, you know, as a surprise. We land on Voyager and Janeway orders them to do some time scans, because if there's one thing this episode doesn't have enough of, it's time science. A slight problem, the others don't know what the fuck she's talking about. Even Chakotay has a different memory, saying they were attacked by the Plague Lads on that moon, but escaped and flew away. She orders the scans anyway, before heading to the dock to make sure being dead 3 times hasn't caused anything serious. Good news, there's no injury as a result of the multiple deaths. Bad news, she has space plague now. Probably caught it during that run-in with the Plague Lads, and it might be what's making her hallucinate those time loops that definitely aren't happening, honest. At least Chakotay doesn't have it, so he's still in line for that promotion. Janeway retires to behind a force field in case she's infectious, and puts her feet up. 40 hours later, she's very plaguey, because this version of space plague is super space plague. The doctor tells her it would be inhumane to let her live through the effects of the infection, so he's going to kill her, which is a bit of a hard left turn, but let's see where this is going. She tries to stop him by using a security override, and I wonder if this is the purpose. Has she been captured? Is this a simulation to harvest sensitive data? Are we doing a Jean-Luc Picard, "there are 4 lights" thing? The The doc gasses her with a neurotoxin and she dies, before waking up back on the shuttle. Surprise! This time we see a bright swirly in front of us, which we're told is more time science. Janeway wants to scarp her, but Chakotay suggests going into it might be the best course of action. She ignores him and hits full reverse, tearing the ship apart and killing them. Back again, only this time things are a bit different. We're on the moon from the first loop, with Chakotay performing CPR on Janeway while other Janeway watches. So I guess everything between the crash and now was a near-death experience, and the last bit was her refusing to go into the light. I still think mind games would have been more interesting, but at least it's not fucking time travel now. Voyager turns up and we quickly get Janeway to sickbay, with other Janeway tagging along and watching. Despite trying his best, the Doctor is unable to do anything, and Janeway is pronounced snuffed it. Chakotay buggers off to change the settings on the captain's chair, while the Doc tells Kez to go to a science lab and get ready for an autopsy. A point to the writers here for Janeway figuring Kez is her best bet due to those psychic shenanigans and following her. We do the standard walking through a ghost trope on the way, though this one at least serves a purpose, as it seems Kez felt something. She calls Chakotay and goes to meet him. Looks like everyone's invited. Tuvok performs Naismith duties by suggesting it may have been her grief, but Kez is having none of that shit, so we all start talking about scans and science and figuring it out, leaving one very happy Janeway. Tangentially, I notice the Doctor isn't present. I do hope someone thought to let him know about current developments, or he'll be cracking open Janeway's ribcage by now. We're in engineering with Janeway, following B'Elanna's efforts to science her alive again. Oh hello, that shiny light's back, and it's brought her dad. He tells her that she's super dead and this is limbo before she moves on to the afterlife, just like he did 15 years ago. She's not quite ready to give up yet, and goes to look for Kez. She's doing some psychic shenanigans with Tuvok to see if they can find Janeway. He's even replaced those ugly candles to avoid distracting her. Kez isn't picking up anything, so Tuvok joins in to help her focus, but the effort still fails. Janeway can't be heard by either of them, though I do wonder why she hasn't tried physical contact again, considering that's how it worked last time. Regardless, Tuvok and Kez call an end to proceedings, not just for this session, but in their continued efforts. Nobody has found any indication that Janeway is still around, and, at some point, you just have to move on. Which is what they're doing tomorrow when they hold her memorial. A few people give glowing eulogies of her, including a somewhat bizarre bit from Kim where he talks about eating fruit with her while violins swell, before Voyager farts out her corpse in a big metal suppository. The memorial ends and everybody goes off to get wankered at the wake, whilst Ghost Dad tells her it's time for her to leave. As an aside, it's all so plausible, all so clear-cut, until I think about those time loops at the start. The out-of-body stuff all fits in with that first thread, but the bits in between simply don't gel. There's more going on here, and not just because her face is on the cover of the DVD releases for the next 4 seasons. It seems Janeway is not ready to buy being dead either. She wants to stay and make sure everything works out for her crew, causing Ghost Dad to get really rather insistent about moving on. Somewhat more so than is necessary if she can leave whenever she wants, a fact that she picks up on herself. Cut to the Doc, Tuvok and Chakotay looming over the camera, the Doc applying treatment. Looks like Janeway saw it too, and despite Ghost Dad's attempt to convince her it wasn't real, she concludes that's where the real her is, that everything else is the illusion. Cut again to more treatment, and Tuvok talking about an entity in her brain. She's urged to keep fighting while they try to force it out. Ghost Dad's getting pretty pissed off now, dropping the pretense of being her father and trying to convince her that the place beyond the light, which he refers to as his matrix, is full of ice cream and puppies and all that good shit. She tells him to get proper fucked, causing him to promise he'll be back because the Delta Quadrant is a dangerous place. Ghost Dad turns around and walks into the light, which now bears a remarkable resemblance to the Eye of Sauron. Back on the planet, Janeway wakes up. We learn that, after the crash, the Doc flew down on a shuttle and started treatment, during which he detected something in her brain. They've been fighting it since, and only just managed to push it out. Looks like she's otherwise fine, as the Doc just lets her get up and walk away. Later, on Voyager, Janeway's not getting the rest she was told to get by the Doctor. Chakotay comes to admonish her, then simply agrees to go sailing and drinking champagne with her on the holodeck instead, as we fly away. Well, this one was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? I'm glad we didn't go down the time travel route, but why include them at all? They don't work as an indication that the entity is trying to convince her to move on, as Ghostad hadn't introduced himself by that point. It feels like they realised the script was running short and put those in to pad it out, as all but one of them don't connect in a way that furthers the main narrative thread. There's some pretty shonky dialogue too, with Chakotay's terrible "don't die on me" stuff being the worst offender. I don't expect Shakespeare, but that felt trite to the point of parody. And those points are a shame, as the central concept isn't a terrible one. There was potential for a decent enough story here, and an opportunity to learn more about Janeway when she's not in crisis mode through the memorial. I'm still waiting for a decent Janeway backstory episode, and this could have sated some of that appetite. Instead, we got Kim getting sad about eating berries with her, while violins try to convince us it's more meaningful than it actually is. End of episode.